To understand how introverted intuition works, it actually can help a lot to zoom out and first think about how introverted intuition is connected to extroverted sensing.
Those two ways of looking at things, SE and NI, are very connected to each other. And so to get a better grasp on how NI works, it's actually really helpful to think about how SE works first.
So how does extroverted sensing work? Well, SE, what it's really good at is focusing on intensely experiencing the present, locking in on what am I seeing? What am I hearing? How is that person moving? What can I interact with now? With SE, there's sort of this sense that the outside world is a playground, something that you can use your body to explore and take things in.
Remember, extroverted sensing, it's still a sensing function, so it's going to want to look at concrete, tangible data. However, in the outside world, for them, it's really fun to get immersed in the real world experience around them. Okay, so introverted intuition, how is it connected to extroverted sensing? The extroverted sensing information we mentioned earlier, that what am I seeing? How's that person moving? NI is also using the outside world sensory data. But the difference is where SE is focused on experiencing the present and what is, NI likes using what they're seeing to guess about things and mentally explore experiences. What NI likes speculating about is what's behind what I'm seeing. Where do I think things are going? And also, based on what I'm observing, this is what I think is going on.
So how exactly does this work? Well, when NI personality types are outside experiencing things in real life, the experience around them, all the things they're observing and sensory things that they're taking in, can sometimes inspire them to take that experience and put it inside their mind. They can sort of build out and flesh out a mental version of the experience that's fun for them to mentally explore and get insights from. It's sort of like, from what I'm seeing, I'm sort of getting this impression that's interesting to read into. Just met this person, but this experience with them, their energy, their confidence, their body language, their outfit, I'm sort of picking up this vibe from them that's fun for me to put inside my mind and speculate about. From what I'm seeing, I feel like I know certain things about them, even though they haven't actually said it out loud yet. All personality types do their own version of speculating, but because NI is super connected with SE, NI speculating, it always has this sensory, visual element to it. It's not just going, oh yeah, this is something that's possible, this is something that could be. No, for introverted intuitive personality types, when they're playing things out in their head, it's actually sort of an experience. It's a little bit like, no, if this actually happened, what am I seeing? What am I interacting with? What is that experience that I'm imagining in my head actually like? And in the same way, actually, that SE in outside real life likes going out there and exploring what's going on around them, NI can have fun mentally fleshing out and exploring this image or experience in their mind.
One of the main reasons NJs like to create these guesses, run simulations, is because what they want to do is try to create expectations or prepare for the unexpected. With NJs, they can get a sense that the full SE experience, being present in the outside world, that can be chaotic sometimes. Just reacting and being in the moment, that doesn't always work. Oh my God, that's stressful. That is not appealing. They really like to be able to say, well, if I take some extra time to think about this, map this out, it's going to really help me understand what's going on. What experiences can I prepare for and what experiences can I move towards? One of the other reasons that NJs like to see things in this way is because they feel it gives them insight into what's unspoken and unsaid. I profiled an ENTJ once and I asked her, how do you know if they're interested in your sales pitch? And she said, well, you just look at their body language and see what they're saying. Somebody could be saying yes, but their body is like this. So you're kind of saying yes, but you're really saying no. So really it's no. And I asked her, well, how do you know? And she's like, you just know.
Yeah, especially stuff like what were their intentions behind that? Stuff like the trajectory of things, the implications of things. Those are things that NJ personality types especially can like focusing on, because for them, it's sort of like, yeah, these things haven't actually happened yet, but it's actually sometimes good to read into things and see where things are going. going. This person's body language, do they have a crush on me? This colleague at work, I feel like they're not pulling their weight. And if they don't pull their weight, their responsibilities are going to me. So I really want to prepare for that. I need to avoid that, or else this is going to be a real headache. The last reason these personality types can especially like this type of patterning is it helps them jump into different perspectives. The idea being, if I simulate things, really play things out and explore and experience in my mind, I feel like it's giving me some new insights. This feeling of, whoa, I'm really seeing these new angles on things. I feel like I'm getting a clearer sense of what's actually going on or what this person's about, things that I wouldn't normally have seen if I just was paying attention to right now in the moment.
It's almost like, well, if I look at different perspectives, I might see something more. This is where I think this is going, but I wonder if this is where they think this is going. I wonder if this other person thinks this is where this is going. Oh, now I think I know what's happening. There's so many sides to introverted intuition, but just to clarify, what it isn't is an intuitive function that's trying to get new ideas from the outside world. So it's not saying, oh, please throw all these new possibilities at me. Oh, there's so many interesting things, what ifs and what could be's. Remember, it's an introverted function that's trying to prepare for what the outside world is trying to throw at them. So it's not going to like expanding and leaning into unexpected possibilities. Instead, what NI likes to do is narrow down. It's an introverted function, so it will want to narrow down to more realistic possibilities, like, where is this all going? What's going on around me in real life?
Okay, so now let's talk about a couple examples of how NI can sometimes look in real life. Before we start though, I did want to say that these examples that we're going to give you, it's not like these are the definition of NI or that NI always looks exactly like this. Definitely don't analyze yourself or type yourself just from these examples.
NI, like the other perceiving functions, it's a mental process that's describing how we like to see things and how we like to take in information. They're not specific outward behaviors.
So NI can show up outside in all sorts of different ways. One example of how NI can sometimes look or show up in real life is it can sometimes look like fantasizing. So for instance, I had this friend and he went to this event that was on this beautiful farm out in the middle of nowhere, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is like the dream. In my mind, when I'm here, I feel like I can see my future family, my kids are playing outside, I'm having people over, I'm going to the kitchen and there's white countertops everywhere. I'm getting a drink and giving one to my wife. We hug and then we just start singing and just enjoying the experience around us. And you know, knowing that friend, actually, he was the type of person where he was like, now I'm gonna work really hard and move towards that happening. I really want to make sure I can set my life in place so that I can get a little closer towards that picture I have in my head of how I sort of hope things are.
Yeah, it's a really good example of that visualization that we're talking about, where SE has the experience and then it takes SE in the mind and kind of creates a new image of something that hasn't been seen in the real world.
The other example that comes to mind is in college, I had this INTJ roommate. And something I found out about him is he has a lot of trouble sleeping unless it's completely dead silent. And so a problem that popped up is I sort of have some mild snoring when I'm sleeping. So when he saw that, he was like, oh my gosh, I am playing this out in my head and I see that this is going in a really bad direction. If this keeps happening for the next couple months, I'm not going to be able to study as well. I'm going to be grumpy because I'm not able to study as well. I'm going to perform worse on the tests, and then I'm going to be resenting you, and then our relationship is going to fall apart, and then it's just going to be this horrible, awkward thing. And so, you know what I think needs to happen? I think one of us needs to move out ASAP.
That's a good example of how NJs can really like to create simulations in the mind, and then it's trying to really narrow it down to the most realistic outcome.
Yeah, it's not going, well, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. It's like, no, actually, if I really play this out and try to be realistic about things, this is where I really think it's going. I see the trajectory. I see the implications. And so I want to prepare for that, or I want to make some decisions based off of what I'm seeing when I extrapolate. The last thing that's sort of unique about NI and how it works is when introverted intuitive personality types are playing things out in their head, as I said before, the things that they simulate, they're really often quite fleshed out. They can be really, really immersive simulations to the point where they can sometimes feel sort of attached to them.
When you're thinking about what to expect, building that image in their mind and kind of living in there, it can be really jarring sometimes when it doesn't match reality. I've talked to a few NTJs and I've asked them, what's the most frustrating thing that you experience? And they talked about, oh my gosh, I went to Japan and I was so disappointed because it wasn't what I had expected. It's like, what do you mean it wasn't what you expected? It's like, well, I imagined it to be like this and it was just like so jarring that it wasn't what I had pictured in my mind.
In MBTI land, because of how things are described sometimes, there's sort of a lot of stereotypes out there that make it seem like NI is like this extra special function that gives you magical superpowers where you're walking down the street and looking at objects and seeing symbols floating out all over the place. NI, the more you get to know it, it's actually a very natural human process. Just one way of looking at things, making connections, and piecing things together that doesn't need to be so complicated to understand.
I remember we've had a few different NJ typing sessions and their reaction would be like, what? I'm an NJ? I don't have NI. And we'd be like, but why? And they'd be like, I'm not psychic. I don't see visions. I don't have like a full 5-year plan ahead. And would be like, oh, baby girl, that's totally fine. You can have psychic visions or not and still be NI or an NJ. I think one of the reasons that the misunderstanding happens online is because of the definitions. It really focuses a lot on behaviors. So there's a lot of this focus on being psychic or how it sees symbols. There are NJs that do see those things. However, there's also a lot of NJs that don't. The best way to really find out what's going on in someone's mind is to talk to them and ask them, why do you see things that way? What are you seeing?
Speaking of which, if you guys enjoyed today's video and wanted to hear from an INFJ directly about what their experience with NI is, how it affects them, the pros and cons, I think you guys might really enjoy this video right here. You are the change maker of your own life. Let's think more deeply. See you guys in the next ones. Peace, peace. Bye.